Hey, good evening, everyone. Uh, Thank you for showing up. There is one more unfortunate soul after me who will be talking about policy before you go to the beer, so please be gentle with them as well. Um, I'm Santosh, and I'm not going to tell you anything that you don't know already. And this talk is not for everyone. So unless you're actually leading a security team and you're having some problems, unless you're actually part of a victim of a security team where your manager is actually trying to help you or not help you, or you're in an organization where your security team is actually screwing you. So whichever way, that means I should cover everyone here. So it should be useful in one way or other. So I'm not going to bore the hell with a lot of text on your laptop, on your PowerPoint, but again, Microsoft, and I can't do a death by PowerPoint thing, but we'll try to keep it interactive, and feel free to stop me and ask questions. And I wanted to have this as more of a discussion. I have the unique privilege of building and scaling 6 security startups so far. I'm working on my 7th one. And I have successful in few and successfully failed at few. So here I am sharing some of my learnings with you all, okay? And this is all about all open, it's a closed AI call. So this is not about AI, so we're going to talk about human beings. How about that? All right, so security leadership many times fail because they try to grok the context in which business is operating. What was business is looking for, what is considered to be value for the business, and how business is actually being considered in the marketplace is the very critical piece of the puzzle that people try to fail. One of the things that I'm clearly seeing it as, for some reason, this is moving, so we're going to do this in the good old way. Cool. So startups are optimized for survival. So if you think about a startup, they are actually optimized to build a product market fit. They're trying to go and take this. So whether you're building a security team inside an organization, where we normally call them entrepreneurs. There are a lot of brave souls that I can see in this audience who are leading security teams inside large organizations, big techs or whatever, or you're actually a leader of a security team who is trying to build and assist a startup. This applies to both of you. So we're trying to, okay, cool. PowerPoint is failing me successfully. Cool. How about we do this? Good old style. Cool. Is everybody able to see well? Okay? You're not seeing anything? Great. How about that? Better? Okay. Sorry, guys. For some reason, I got a Mac adapter to Microsoft, but I forgot about PowerPoint. Yay. That's fine. We're good. We're going to... okay. Technical problems. I can't get that work.
Yeah, you can. Slide up, get that little green dot. You can do it.
Yep. All right.
Change your mirroring.
Yeah, that's fine.
Change your mirroring.
That's
there.
not that.
That's fine. Oh,
yeah, that's fine. Okay, fine. It's okay. That's fine. We're going to work through this. All right, cool. We're back to building the rocket ship. Essentially, what I'm trying to put the piece in the puzzle, we're building something that is actually hitting the product market fit, and we're trying to see that the security features that you're building are good enough to make the product successful to kind of do that. When you miss that piece, and when you try to kind of build and operate only in the lens of securing the organization without truly understanding the business context in which you're actually building the business, you fail to you tend to actually go and see some failures. So this is something that we have seen again and again. So one of the key areas where I see startup teams and security teams fail is they jump into implementation of solutions without understanding whether that particular value is actually articulated into the business strategy or not. Sometimes they don't even understand why certain things are because unless the business sees that it is going to enable and unlock a business opportunity, it actually helps us with a particular customer conversation and a conversion that is not going to work it. So zero trust and patch the hell thing, everything, patch everything within 1 week. And all these initiatives are great implementation ideas, but it may not be applicable everywhere where you're going into. So it's super critical for you to understand the whys behind what is it actually that is driving and unlocking the business. Particularly for entrepreneurs, it's the same thing. Why am I given this headcount? Why am I actually working on this particular problem rather than something else for the business, and how it actually maps to the business outcomes and how we're going to do that. So if you don't do that groundwork, you're bound to fail in that area. So it's super, super critical for you to think about those lines. When it comes to your alpha team, super important, you have to think about it as more like a co-founder mindset. Doesn't matter whether you're in a small team or a big team, is your alpha members, the first set of hires that you're going to hire for your team has to be absolutely like co-founder. When I say co-founders, those are the people who are willing to give up their jobs, give up their comfort place, willing to put everything on for the mission on which you are in, right? When you're hiring for that team, so you have to be very, very mindful of are you going to do that. So those are not just bringing skills to the table. There might be people who who are subject matter experts, but they are actually setting up the cultural framework in which your service and your team and your growth is going to be paid out. So be very mindful, do they have that co-founder mindset? Are they willing to give up for the mission? Are they willing to stand in when it fails? Are they willing to have that mindset to iterate and come back and stay with you along the process? Super, super critical for you. There are two types of people that you can hire. One are doers, people who will ship stuff, and then people who are multipliers, right? Who knows how to handle things, how to multiply things, how to scale things. Super tempting for you is to hire all builders early on. That is great, but then you will end up having a congestion of a lot of subject matter experts trying to solve independent problems separately with their excellence without bridging the pieces together and turn it back into the product market fit. So you may want to be very mindful of builders versus multipliers. Like what is the order? Like say, right, you bring in 1 or 2 subject matter experts who can actually turn things, make things happen, and then you bring in multipliers who can actually scale it, stabilize it, turn that into a platform, turn that into a repeatable solution, something that you can apply and productize and take it forward. That balance is super critical, right? I've often ended up having sometimes too many experts, right, individually trying to lift the boulders while not being able to collaborate with others to try to do that because they're stuck in that box of expertise. Hey, I'm a PKI expert, I'm a network security expert, right? And then I'm going to be focused on only that particular aspect without thinking about how do I uplift the whole thing to actually help the business. Very critical because we have seen some mistakes where we have done where it was things. This is one other area you may have to think about. Your team need not to have all security experts. Think about hiring people from your engineering teams, your partner teams, your customer teams, right? I've hired Barry from Bing to come and help me with Xbox, right? I've hired Saurav from customer support team to go and build Windows security team. Very, very diverse set of technical and cultural and context that they will come and enrich your life. The other aspect I want to talk about is investments beyond security. Actually, for your success, there are so many other teams that are beyond security that will be actually playing a critical role in that, right? Think about all the foundational security things. Think about your CI/CD security. Think about your developer experience. Think about your platform teams. Think about the teams that are actually going and shipping the security features. Think about the teams that are actually consuming things. All of these things are outside the security realm that are directly affecting the success of a security program in a company. Often, security leaders tend to lose sight of that, and they are very much focused inward towards building a strong world-class security team without investing outward on all these different areas of the company that also equally have to be mature. When was the last time a security leader was successful with vulnerability management team without actually convincing a bazillion engineering teams to actually go and patch and build that infrastructure to do that? Super, super critical to recognize those gaps and recognize those key stakeholder points across your organization where you need to invest resources, time, and effort and alignment for your security outcomes to be successful in the company. So think about one of the first things that comes to my mind is asset inventory, right? So this was one of the, neither we know our assets, nor a freaking inventory that actually track them, right? If any company on the planet who actually claims that they got asset inventory right, they're wrong, right? The second one would be vulnerability management, right? These are the two things, right, that's seemingly obvious, but nobody got it right. It is because they are tough, because this is not just about a systemic issue about security doing one or two. It's about investing in the company's cultural transformation where everybody is aligned with the security outcomes and most of the work is outbound. You're trying to convince your engineering leaders, your business leaders to think critically about their security needs and how you're going to work through that, right? A lot of the business talk is all about, yeah, when can I get FedRAMP? When can I get ISO? When can I get SOC 2? You're not going to get a SOC 2 without knowing what the hell we're actually trying to protect. Oh, that's not my problem. That's someone else's problem. No, that is going to be a security problem unless you're investing on it. So think critically about all the areas that you need to go and make investments for. You need to go and fight headcount for. You need to go and fight prioritization for. And that will actually help you to go and gain that success model that you are looking for. Okay, this is my favorite thing. So in fact, I was hired to Microsoft, Salesforce, right? My job description was, there is friction between engineering and security, go fix it, easy, right? Again, developer experience is amazing. So that friction between engineering and security can completely kill that option. We have seen yet many highly sophisticated, well-built security features and tools have lost its, value and adoption because of the friction, because of lack of developer empathy, not being able to think through that in the developer ecosystem. On the flip side, right, we had great success with Azure Green Team, which was amazing. We built the world's dumbest thick client and the world's stupidest dashboard that looks like crap, but it works. And that's it. That's the only thing that works. It works and it looks ugly, it looks crappy, but it works. And when the developers started using it, they saw the value and it just became organically viral in the dev community without security doing a thing, except I claimed the win, saying like, hey, I cleared 150,000 management certificates off of all Azure subscriptions. Now, I didn't do much. Actually, we built a crappy tool, but it works. Super, super important to understand where the motions are and think like, my wife is a social media influencer, so I always think like, okay, what actually clicks and what goes viral? What goes viral in a developer community about a security thing that they are excited about? How do we build that and do it? Super, super critical, because otherwise you might be building something great, but it doesn't work. Then the last dimension to think about is scaling security functions is not just about talent propagation, it's also about cultural transformation. How are you going to put the right cultural seeds in your culture? How are you going to curate that culture early on? And how are you going to consciously scale this, right? We talked about external versus internal hiring. It's not just all about just bringing in security experts into the game, right? Having a mix of engineers versus things, right? We have seen many times that one crack in that foundation will completely ruin security team's culture, its dimension, its trajectory, and its relevance to the business. So super critical for us to think about, okay, what are those cultural norms that you want to protect and prevent? You have to be very, very intentional about it. A lot of people ask me a question, what is culture means? To put it in a very simple way, the difference between what you think and what you say and what you do. Simple. Some people call it politics, some people call it nonsense, BS, whatever the adjective you want to use. It's difference between your thought, your verbal articulation of your thought, and your action. If you get alignment between all these three things right, that's a healthy culture. People say what they think, and then people do what they say. So watch out for those clause and then see, like, if there is any deviations from that. So some of the bets that it went through in my life, right? So it's always tempting to see a very brilliant person that comes across extremely talented, super technical, right? And you just get vibe with that individual, and you really want to bring them on, right? So one of the core things that you have to be watching for, are they coachable? I have hired intelligent jerks, and unfortunately I had to fire some of them in my career. And I've also hired certain people who were intelligent jerks and then been willing to coach, willing to learn, and some of them have been very, very successful in the industry, right? In fact, Microsoft has one of the youngest partners at Microsoft happens to be one of that person. I'm not going to take the name on here, but it's an amazing success to see an individual who was considered to be rough around the edges, turns out to be making impact, right? That is touching millions of, and if not billions of people on this planet. So think about coachability, think deeply about this, and how do you going to do that, right? So it's an investment. And if you can't invest on coaching someone, don't take that risk. It's okay, right? We may get another person, we may get another mediocre person, but they might be able to produce the results. But the cost of hiring an intelligent jerk and not being able to invest cycles to help them, grow them into a great, well-rounded professional is going to be very expensive. Particularly red teamers in the room, right? They all start with cocky edges on that side because they keep finding things that nobody could think about, and then they get very excited about it. So it's very, very important to think about it. And on the other end is the psychological safety. At the end of the day, you want to go and build a team that feels comfortable. On the same campus, two buildings away, like I remember going to one of my mentors, Avi Ben Menahem, and talking about how I'm struggling with someone who is not willing to take feedback in the right way, and I'm failing definitely not to help that individual. And he gave me a gift called Radical Candor. How many of you read the book? Cool. So a lot of people, right? So he told me about how my ruinous empathy is actually affecting that individual not to grow, and how to actually do that. So the best analogy that I can think of in psychological safety context is a knife. A thief will carry a knife, a surgeon will carry a knife. Both have the same exact instrument, but the intent is absolutely, one is trying to take away a life, where other one is trying to make the life. That's exactly the same kind of knife you have, called feedback. You need to learn how to apply that feedback with the right intention to help the other, even at the risk of that other person's hurting their feelings, or being able to look like you're trying to do some harm to them. But at the end of the day, right, you're using that feedback as a mechanism to make them better and help succeed in the circumstances in which they are in. Super, super important. And you have to be vulnerable. You have to be willing to be vulnerable. You should be leading by example. So if you screw up, you should be able to do that, right? So I had the unique privilege of bringing down Xbox Live at Microsoft, because I'm so excited to apply the new updated version of Tripwire, and that didn't go well. So obviously, right, that's the learning, right? Like then I actually spend a lot more time with the autopilot team in Xbox to how to actually deploy and scale and in a regional way, so that in case if something goes wrong, we have a mechanism to stop, roll back, etc. This is 10 years ago. Nowadays it's all common, but back then we have learned some experiments with a lot of expensive mistakes. Putting things into context, essentially, think about your business context. You've been hired and you've been given the responsibility to build security teams because of your technical chops. Now your job is to actually understand business. What is sales doing? What's marketing doing? What is legal doing? What's HR doing? What is product doing? The better you understand that, you will fit your security narrative into that, and that is how you will help the business to gain momentum. Of course, the first set of hires are going to shape your trajectory, super, super critical for you to pick your choices and be into. There is a reason why I said it's artistic science, because it's not a science. It's not complete art either. So you have to go learn, experiment, and operate, and feel free to have a firm conviction around that. Again, investments outside security is a big piece of the puzzle. So many times we tend to look inward and trying to say, like, where am I filing? Why am I filing? Did I hire the wrong person? Did I pick the wrong OKR? No, think broadly. What are the external investments that you need to make things better? Even if you have to lose a good candidate for a partner team, probably that might be a good thing, because they are going to help you succeed in the long run. And then again, so don't lose sight on your cultural nuances. It's super, super critical for you, because that's going to make a big difference. With that, I'm actually opening for questions. And then you have an opportunity to not let me come back to you. It's the guy who cannot actually make PowerPoint work. All right? So, sorry, yeah, okay. So, all right, sorry, yeah, I want to make sure. Yeah, questions, please. Yeah, Carson.
Hey, Santosh. Thank you for sharing. I remember your startup culture, good times. One of the phenomena that I have experienced as a manager is I have this very strong connection and empathy with my team. And as a consequence, this sometimes prevents me from delivering difficult messages, especially when they're people I believe in. Further, it sometimes gets in my way of believing, oh, maybe next semester they'll do better. So how do you others see others reconcile the need to show empathy and togetherness and safety with their teams, especially when they are more executives, with the need to say, look, this person isn't performing?
Yeah. Now, if you're a parent, it's easy, right? And then if you're a parent for a teenager, it's going to screw the hell out of you. So I've been both. So yeah, Carson's question is like, how do you balance between empathy and actually still driving meaningful outcome? So I think it all starts with the intent. So most of the times, what worked for me is I start the conversation with the intent. Hey, my intent is to help you succeed. And I'm already recognizing, given the position at which I am in, right, I recognize that it is not actually going in the right direction. And then I will pause and say, I'm curious to know, do you even agree? And do you have the same kind of alignment and all? Most of the times, they may not even agree that there is a problem. And then you go straight with a solution, screw you. So you got to pause and let them actually ideate and see, like, if there is a common agreement, yes, I think this can be better. We can optimize this. We can go better. Once we agree upon that, like the problem is a thing, and then your intent is to actually help them, the third dimension will automatically pop up where you can have figure out the mechanisms to do that. Yeah, that's why it is an art, but I have seen that happen, right? When I didn't do step 1 and 2, it definitely backfired.
Yes, please. Something that we struggle with, or our definition, which is a really spontaneous word about integrated core engineering, is we get support pretty often from augmented type support, some contractors or the like. Yeah. In your experience, if we've ever had that situation as well, does your approach go
approaches? So does your approach change at all when it comes to
No, I think, see, contractor versus FTE versus TPM versus engineer, we're all human beings. We're all actually working on the same mission. You should treat everybody in the same way. Of course, there are pockets where you're not going to share certain information, et cetera, et cetera. Like I have my TPM always joining my stand-ups every time. I actually treat my TPM like my direct. It doesn't matter who he reports into because he's a critical part of my mission. The same thing with a contractor who is actually augmented to an adult. So we know as security people how to compartmentalize security information versus when we treat people, I think I will draw a much bigger circle. As the longer the circle, the longer inclusive you are, the better it is for you compared to the other way. Okay, we're at time, but I'll be here more than happy to take any questions. And if you want to kick me out, please fill the form. Right? See you.